Reports coming out that a handful of Auburn players plan to enter the portal, and some of this is a big deal and some of it's not.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Lindsay, Crosby of thebarnauburn.com, as well as a handful of other places joining us on this Monday. Several names for Auburn reportedly entering the portal. The quarterback situation gets a little clearer over the weekend, but let's start with the list of names, and we'll touch on all of them at some point today. The most impactful one, or I guess the most potentially impactful one, Perry Thompson, fan favorite, and Perry represents more than just, his production on the field, the Iron Bowl aspect of this, and I do think he probably meant a little bit more under the Hugh Freeze administration, because that was a big win for the Hugh Freeze regime. And obviously that is now behind us. But I think Perry Thompson showed glimpses down the stretch that he was starting to put it all together. And to me, him kind of saying, I guess he told someone, right? Because reports surfaced that he is intending to enter the portal when it opens next month. I do think this is a bit of a blow when it comes to the depth and maybe the overall floor of the Auburn receiver room next year.
Yeah, the frustrating part about this, to your point, is you spent a year and a half with him on the roster and didn't really get much of anything out of him. It was just down the stretch, where Vanderbilt, 4 catches for 28 yards. First start of his career was the Georgia game, 3 for 17.
When Horatio Fields went down, he was able to step up and be wide receiver 3 in an offense that couldn't throw the football.
Yeah, I mean, you carried him for a while and didn't get anything out of him. And right as he started, it felt like he was starting to come on. I still think there were some concerns about overall fit in the scheme. We can get that in a second. But as soon as he started to do stuff, he decided to move on. And it's clear, and I'm putting words into his mouth now, but it's clear that it feels like he thought he should have been a bigger part of the offense than he was. And so when the portal opens, he's going to be, I think, the biggest loss. But the flip side for me is that's a position of strength, right? That is a position where if you were to lose guys, it feels like that might not be as hurtful as if you lost, a key linebacker, or, you lost one of the running backs you don't have very many of right now.
Sure. Yeah, and we assumed that there would be, we would lose receivers, right? Whether it was at the top or in the middle or the bottom, we all knew that there would be receivers that entered the portal. Malcolm is a name that I've thrown out a ton, and we'll see what happens with him. But I think there's different ways to look at Perry leaving. It happened so quickly. The report of his intent happened so quickly that it almost makes you think he was going to leave anyway, right? I mean, everything's being tied to Auburn hiring Alex Golesh. Everything that happens, like, it falls under Golesh now, whether that's fair or not. But I do wonder how much of this, Perry decision he made weeks ago, or was it tied to Hugh Freeze and it didn't matter who we would have hired? Or was it tied to, did he have a conversation with Alex Golesh and him saying, I don't know. I don't know if this is where I want to go. Was it tampering and somebody else is already interested in him? Or Lindsay, I mean, this is just total, pure boog, pure orange and blue glasses. Does this help Auburn's stance with retaining Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton and Malcolm Simmons? Because you have to assume Perry Thompson was being paid handsomely when it came to NIL.
The thing that blows my mind, I mean, that's a big point. You can bring in some transfers now with those funds that you've unlocked. The thing that blows my mind, though, is not from a money perspective, but from a roster fit perspective, you had room to bring in high-level wide receiver transfers and keep Perry, because I honestly think Perry probably would have been better served in the Golesh offense at tight end anyway. It really feels like Golesh had one primary pass catching tight end and he had a blocking tight end, and they were on the field a bunch. And you probably could have put him in there at tight end and let him play that big slot role that Gus used to love. I do think a better use of his physical tools would have been tight end maybe than wide receiver, simply because his separation and his speed is better served against a linebacker or a safety than a corner.
Yeah.
But from a talent acquisition standpoint, having those funds freed lets you get a better return on investment than you got the first 2 years of him being on the roster.
Yeah. So you're not the first person I've heard talk about Perry at tight end. One, maybe he doesn't want to play tight end, and that was part of it.
Could be part of it.
I also like the biggest question for Perry's game so far for me and from coaches, just from what I've heard and been told, like the concern about his hips being tight. And they're just kind of like him not taking that next step athletically as far as just getting looser as a route runner at the next level. And like that's stuff that you need to be able to do as a tight end too. And so if you can't loosen up as a route runner, like, are you going to be able to run routes as well as be a blocker at the point of attack consistently? I don't know. But Perry being gone, like I think I've said this for the last few weeks. Like, there's gonna be guys that leave that hurt worse than others, and whether that's on the field or overall perception, I think that's going to be I think that's to be determined to some extent. I don't think Perry is a huge deal losing him on the field. I definitely think he's the most impactful name so far as we sit down and have this conversation Sunday afternoon. I hate this one just for what it represents. And if you want to say, well, what it represents doesn't matter anymore because Hugh Freeze is gone, I won't push back on that at all.
I do think that it maybe takes a little bit of not the upside, but some of the positives of Hugh Freeze, right? And it was like, well, at least he could recruit. Like at least one, unlike the previous guy, he tried, and that he was actually able to do it. Yeah. Well, now you have some of these guys that he brought in, you couldn't utilize for 2 years, and now they're leaving. And so it's like, how much, yes, he was a good recruiter, but was that a situation where you brought in a 5-star just to bring in a 5-star, right? You didn't actually effectively use the talent. And so I think that's maybe the flip side of that is, had you not brought him in and you had that NIL money free that you mentioned, could you have gotten a better quarterback? Could you have gotten another offensive lineman? Like, there's that flip side of, we talk about Hugh didn't nail the quarterback evaluations out of the portal. Kind of feels like, at least to some extent, he didn't nail the wide receiver evaluation here.
Or do we even know?
Yeah, I'm about to say.
Do we even know?
I mean, he did do better without Hugh here, which almost everybody did, it feels like, other than the win-loss record. So maybe he did, and it's just another coda on how poor the Hugh Freeze era ended up being that we couldn't get.
I would not be shocked if Perry went somewhere else and was solid. I'd be shocked if he was great. I would not be shocked if he was a solid guy, 3-4 catches a game, your occasional game where he pops for 60 to 80 yards. Like, that would not shock me at all. Like a guy who makes a roster better. That would not shock me.
Yeah, finishes.
He goes off and becomes a elite first-round draft pick. That would surprise me.
He finishes a season with 35 catches for 350 and, a couple touchdowns. It's like, okay, would you have liked to have that? Yeah. Could you replicate that? Probably cheaper than what his NIL package was. I'm sure you probably could.
Probably so. We got some clarity on the quarterback room. Kinda. Let's tackle that next right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Lindsay, the World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. And you're probably like, well, I bet getting tickets for that is really difficult.
Oh, yeah. It's incredibly hard.
It's not, though. But it's actually not. What if I told you it wasn't hard to get tickets for that or for anything? Because you can download the Game Time app, use promo code LOCKEDONCollege to save $20 off your first purchase. And with Game Time, the layout's super easy to use. You just pick a game, tap a section. You can see the view from your seat. You can toggle all-in pricing, so it includes all your fees up front, which I love. No last-second surprises at checkout. Bada bing, bada boom, Lindsay. Does that sound that difficult now that I laid out game time for you?
That's a lot easier than how you were going to have to try to buy them from FIFA. That's fantastic. I'm going to do that for the World Cup.
Yeah, take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets or basketball tickets, whatever it might be. Every match, concert, event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, download the app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off today. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free on audio. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Auburn with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. You can go to the URL that is in the show notes below. Very, very excited about this new initiative that we have launched with Locked On. And if anybody signs up, it supports the show a ton. We really, really appreciate it. All right, Lindsay, as far as kind of taking a step forward with the quarterback position, Jackson Arnold has reports of surface that he is planning to enter the portal. And I want to be clear on this. Yeah. Lindsay and I talked about this a second ago. There's some people saying that so-and-so's in the portal. That's not actually correct. You cannot enter the portal yet. You can't enter the portal until January 2nd. So I just want to be careful with our language here because this does impact young men's lives. So we are talking about reports of people intending with their intent to enter the portal. That is what's been reported. Just want to be clear on that. So Jackson
January 2nd through 16th is that time period. And this is it. There's no after spring practice portal. Yep. This is it. If you go through, if you do not leave your school during this window, provided you don't quit your team, you're on the team in the fall. Like this is it. There are special rules if your coach changes after January 2nd, or if you're in the college football playoff, but that's it. Other than that, this is your window. Everybody, including grad transfers. That's a change too.
Yeah, which I guess is good. I mean, that's what all the coaches wanted. So I'm assuming
put them
that's
all in the same. Sport. Yeah, put them all.
Seems
in the same
pretty unanimous. That's what they want. So we should probably listen to them. So there we go. Jackson Arnold is gone, or will be gone, which shouldn't be surprising. But I guess his urgency to leave, and it sounds like it was a mutual parting of ways, right? I don't think Alex Golesh wanted to keep him on the roster, would be my assumption. But I guess this does narrow it down a little bit. It gets us a step closer. So we saw them sign Brush from the high school ranks last week. And now the question is, what's up with Deuce? What's up with Ashton? And do they pursue another quarterback in the portal? That to me is where we're at. I think Jackson leaving, I do think they will have to add a quarterback via the portal. Now, do you go out and get a starter who can compete with Deuce and Ashton? Or do you go get a guy who can kind of be what we wanted Ashton to be last year? That's the question.
Yeah, I'm of the boat of like, hey, it's a big deal. One, similar to Perry, you get that money back that you were spending on Ashton Daniels to be here.
Jackson Arnold.
I'm sorry. Jackson Arnold. Thank you. I'm sorry.
You're good. Yep.
Ashton Daniels is still here as of now, but I don't know if with Alex Golesh, does Ashton Daniels do what he wants? It feels like Deuce Knight was made for an Alex Golesh offense. He's also incredibly young. I think a lot of this depends on one, what does Ashton Daniels want to do? And then two, what does Golesh's former quarterback at USF? Is he entering the portal? Because if he has a chance to bring Byron Brown to the Plains, it feels like that's a guy he knows runs his offense well, they have good chemistry together. Feels like that's a guy you would bring. If he's not coming, do you roll with the two you have and bring a backup in, or do you just make a three-headed monster for a competition? I don't know.
I think you bring in Byron Brown, assuming he wants to come here.
Yeah.
I think you bring in Byron Brown, and then you just let the chips fall wherever they hit the table. If that causes people to leave, you deal with the ramifications. This is a guy, when you talk about Golesh, this is a guy who wants to win this year. And I just don't think he wants to take really any gambles. I think he's okay with rolling with what he knows. You've seen that with a large part of his staff that's come over. I do think Deuce has some certainties. I also think he has lots of uncertainties. And then Byron Brown's uncertainties are, can they translate to the next level? And you look at what he did against the good defenses that he played, and he held his own when he was playing with G5 teammates. You put SEC's caliber teammates around him. What does that look like? I'm in the camp that you bring in the best quarterback you absolutely can, and if that scares people off, we got to deal with it.
Yeah, it feels like you can't be afraid to bring in a talented player at almost any position at this point. And it's hard to, I think it's a hard sell for anybody in any of these rooms to go to the head coach and say, why'd you bring in this transfer? We were good enough. Because from the record, nobody was good enough. So I do think it is very, very easy as a coach to sell like, hey, at the end of the day, if you don't like it, play better. You say it all the time. You don't like it, play better. And Brown would make a ton of sense.
Right.
And my question is, do you let him commit as soon as the portal opens? Or do you try to wait till the very end of the portal window just so you maybe don't lose a third guy out of that room?
I think you do it as soon as possible, right? Like you got to do, you can't change the culture here without being fully transparent with the guys on the roster that you acquired or inherited.
Yeah.
But I do think, like, I would worry if you're Golesh and you're like, okay, I'm going to pass on Brown because I believe in Deuce. I'd be concerned that Deuce would wait till the end of the window. Then what do you do?
Yeah, if Deuce goes in on day 15 of the 15-day window.
And it's not Deuce's fault. What if somebody who wants him, who's tampering at the last seconds, like, enter, this is the package, we've upped it by, another $1 million or whatever. And then it's like an offer that he can't say no to, and he enters the portal.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, well, we passed on Brown. Brown signed with so-and-so, 3 days ago because we passed on him for you. That would worry me.
Valid, yeah. And I do think there is something to the argument of, and it doesn't always happen, a lot of schools don't like this, but you can enter the portal and then withdraw the portal. I do think you're going to see a lot of guys who will try to either float interest or will go into the portal and then realize, oh, maybe I don't have a home and come back out. I do think that's
my only pushback, you will see that. My only pushback to that is if you haven't made a decision by the end of the window, tampering seems so much more okay now than it did in previous years. I mean, there's reports coming out. People are saying, and I'm seeing on different social places and blogs and all that, where like other teams are like really hitting up our players. I'm like, well, like I kind of assume our people are hitting up other players too. So like, is that, I don't know, can we be upset about that? Like, I don't fully know how to feel about it until like the NCAA is going to do something about it. I just don't know if that's really going to be a thing. So, there are other names that aren't surprising that have entered, or that reports have surfaced that they're planning to enter the portal. Let's take a stab at some of those in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Omaha Steaks. I love Omaha Steaks. Lindsay, do you love Omaha Steaks?
Big steak guy. Wife and I have steak night all the time.
Yes.
Big steak guy. Huge. Omaha Steaks, they come fantastic. They're quality, perfectly aged, insanely tender, and Locked On can help you out with it.
They can. Christmas season, it comes with two big goals: feeding people well and finding gifts they'll actually love. And when you want both handled in one move, Omaha Steaks is the way to go. From hosting to gifting, they deliver the world's best steak experience right to your door. Because during their Sizzle All the Way sale, I love it.
The puns are great. It's like they used to do radio with us. Golly.
Sizzle All the Way. You can stock up and save in a huge way. 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. And it gets even better. Locked On College listeners get an extra $35 off with code COLLEGE at checkout. Save big on gourmet gifts and more holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com. 50% off site-wide during their Sizzle All the Way sale. An extra $35 off when you use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. Terms apply. Check them all out at omahasteaks.com. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Reports of other names that intend to enter the portal. Antonio Coleman, defensive lineman, kind of like haven't mentioned him a ton, but that should surprise no one. He flipped like 5 times during his recruiting process. So like this tracks.
Didn't he get suspended in like August by Hugh for a violation of team rules?
Yeah, like I legit forgot about him because of that, I think.
Yeah.
Which was,
sense.
I mean, so much talent, right? Like, I don't know what all's going on in his life. I hope he has good influences, and I hope he takes care of he will get a big deal from somewhere because he's so like the everything is there. So I seriously, I wish him nothing but the best. I hope he gets good advice from people. Damari Austin, obviously, Rayon Strader, who I feel like we were so high on him going into the season, and like Rayshawn Pleasant was just better at corner than him. I thought he'd be Auburn's third corner. It ended up being Pleasant. So, take that for what it's worth. I also think there's a chance that, like, I don't know if Strader's a perfect scheme fit either. But he had a really good PFF grade, and everybody just kind of ran with that. And I'm like, all right, well, he was really good at breaking up passes, and PFF loves that in their rankings, which they should. That's an important thing for corners to do.
Think it's true.
And then Caleb Wheatland, who I'm going to be real with you, I kind of forgot about as well.
Yeah, Caleb Wheatland ended up not having nearly as big of a role as we kind of thought. And I think that was something where you knew you needed people to step up at linebacker. Yeah. And I think we were counting on Caleb Wheatland coming in and being one of the guys until somebody did that. And they just did that so much sooner than we were expecting. Yeah,
I mean, the linebacker room, everybody stepped up. And, did Caleb Wheatland raise the floor of that room? Absolutely. Absolutely. And we heard reports early on in camp that, it was taking him a while to get going. And then, obviously Xavier Atkins and Robert Woodyard were phenomenal. So, Caleb Wheatland being an older guy, did he mentor them and maybe help them out off the field? I don't know. But Caleb Wheatland entering the portal. So wish all these guys nothing but the best moving forward. I want to talk a little bit just because I haven't done a show since then, just because it's been, since Thursday night, everything's just been a blur, if I'm being 100% honest with you. But Jase Matthews, Friday afternoon, longtime Auburn commit, the 5-star receiver, flips to Ole Miss. And I think it's a bummer. Mm-hmm. It does sound like money was involved. Shocker. Yep. And this sounds like copium. And let me be very clear. I would much rather have Jase Matthews than not. Let me be very clear on that. But it did sound like Ole Miss dropped the bag. And there's questions on his health long-term because I believe he's had 2 separate knee injuries, which is a question mark. If you're going to pay a guy a 5-star money and there's health questions about sustainability with his knees, that's, I can't get frustrated or mad about that, Lindsay. And that was my initial news when I'm like, oh my goodness, he flipped. And then it's like, well, I guess I get it if Ole Miss came in the final hour and did a bag drop.
Yeah, for a local kid. He's from Mississippi.
True.
Yeah. I think, that was something that they needed to do for Pete Golding. They needed to have a win on signing day simply because of everything else that happened. I do think that given that it's his second injury, and there was already a lot of talk in his high school career about yes, he's a good defender. I'm sorry. He's a good route runner. He's great at contested catches. But if you read all of the stuff, a lot of the talk was about how he can play through contact. He's making those contested catches. It felt like he was already not the fastest guy in the world. And then when you throw it, like great short area quickness, that kind of stuff, but top end speed, and then you throw in a second knee injury. They talked about how good he was as an inline blocker, a move blocker at times. Feels like this could be a situation where down the road, he's slow for a wide receiver, but maybe they're looking at a big slot, a position change kind of thing. I just don't know if the money, if you would have gotten the return on investment, it feels like a Perry Thompson situation where he almost feels like he's maybe a little too slow to be a number one receiver, but that at the same time, you're trying to find ways to use him, and he's coming off injury, unlike Perry.
Yeah, the injuries are concerning. And then, I mean, let's talk about off-field ramifications for a second. Derek Nix going back to Ole Miss, which makes sense. I think it's going to be a great fit. He'll probably have more control over his offense there now that Lane Kiffin has gone to LSU. So good opportunity for Derek Nix. Wish him nothing but the best, except for when he plays Auburn.
Yep.
But the other element of this is apparently Jase Matthews and Deuce Knight are very close. There was some talk that if we hold on to Jase, it would be huge for Deuce. And if you think that, if you're going to have speculation that way, you have to have speculation the other way, right? Or I think you're just being silly. And so does this hurt your footing with Deuce at all? I don't know. Full transparency, I don't know, but I do think it's worth asking the question.
Yeah, I do think if you were to lose Deuce Knight, going with his friend and his offensive coordinator would be an appealing destination. So that's a little bit concerning. And I think if that happens,
Mississippi guy too, right?
Yeah, I mean, like if that happens, your best case scenario is just push the price as much as you can to try to take away their limited funds for something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of reinforces the point from the second segment. You just have to bring in the best quarterback you can and not worry about what it does to the room. Because
and if you don't want to be here and you want to go play with your friends or you're a specific coach that's not on staff anymore, like you should probably leave. I don't think it helps us that much if you're here. So I want Deuce to want to be at Auburn. I want Deuce to excel at Auburn. I want Deuce to be so good that you have to put him on the field regardless of who they bring in at quarterback. That's what I want. I think every Auburn fan wants that. Gosh, college football. I mean, some of the conversations we're having is just like, are we talking about college football? Like it's so wild. Because we used to have to like dance around the money stuff, and now it's like, no, that's it. That's it.
We still don't talk about like exact amounts because we don't really know those. But like it's
correct.
It is the way we talk about the game, like the tampering, how we just all kind of acknowledge, like these schools are outright calling our players, asking them to go in the portal and promise them this money to come here and all of that. That's something that's kind of a bit wild to get over.
Yeah, coaches just going in a press conference and it's like, oh yeah, they've all been called by other teams. It's like, start giving details. I want to hear dollar amounts. I want to hear names. Like I want to like just start calling folks out. But that's the thing is everybody's doing it. So you're not going to call. And the dollar amount is tricky because like there's so many different ways to funnel money to the players.
Yeah.
Like, okay, are we talking rev share dollars?
And
are we talking collective dollars?
Total package?
Are we talking about, a corporate sponsor paying them? Like it's not all coming in like one place.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, if you're throwing like dollar signs out there, like what dollar amount are you talking about? Because the head coach probably doesn't know like the total amount between all three of those things.
Yeah. Hey, I think it's important to remember, Zach, that the players that come to Auburn because they love Auburn and they want to be here. The players that go somewhere else clearly make the move only because of money and they have no loyalty to any institution whatsoever.
100%.
And that's the most important thing to remember about the transfer portal.
I think that's a great point to end on. Lindsay, Crosby, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
I'm on social media at Crosby Baseball. The Braves content, bravestoday.com, the Braves Today podcast. Yeah. Also, the Everydayer Club partnering with Jake from Locked On Braves to bring you exclusive Braves content over there as well.
Ooh, I think you get a discount if you sign up for one and then the other. So yeah, sign up for Locked On Auburn and Locked On Braves. That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.